During the pandemic, so many of us found ourselves contemplating what our dreams were and the path we were taking to make them happen. Now, I've heard from many authors time and time again that the book that they would one day write moved up higher on that priority list. And I've had the pleasure of meeting an author who wrote reflections during that time and published an amazing book from it. I actually just spoke to an author the other day who used that time to put his life story on paper and will soon be publishing his book. And today you'll hear from a dear friend of mine, Elisabeth Swan, who found herself reflecting openly through LinkedIn during this time, only to have her followers start asking about a book that she was going to write and didn't know was needed. Guess what? That book will be coming out this year. Elisabeth Swan is an author we've had the pleasure of working with in various ways. And today we dig into the value of feedback, how you can create demand for a book while you're crafting it, why the blog to book concept never goes out of style, and how collaboration is the name of the game. Ready to learn from Elisabeth? I always am. Let's dive in. Hey, I'm Stephanie Feger, and Empowered is my middle name. Well, not really, but it should be, friends. I believe that empowered people empower people. I'm obsessed, as you know, with empowering you, the nonfiction author, with impactful marketing strategies to help you take your important message and share it with those who desperately need it, who need it and want it, and who need it, want it, and will buy it. I'm the owner and chief strategist of the Empower PR Group, and I'm the author of 3 books myself, including my newest book, Make Your Author Impact. Sell more books, increase your reach, and achieve your why. I've been called to merge my love for reading books, writing books, and marketing books to help nonfiction authors like you with laser-focused strategies and tactics so that you can write books that sell, promote books to those who need and want them most, and build meaningful businesses from empowering messages. I hope that you can think of this podcast as your one-stop shop for marketing insights from an author who has been there, done that, and understands exactly where you are, because I do. So get your pens ready because I'm ready to empower you. This is the Empowered Author Podcast. I've been wanting you on the podcast for quite some time, but I'm really excited today's the day. Thank you for taking time today to be on.
Anything for you.
Oh, you're so sweet. Yeah, so we've had the chance to work together for quite some time. We've worked in many different ways. But what I've loved most about our collaboration is like, I don't know, the personal growth both of us continue to have when we collaborate. It's just fun. I've told you recently, like you make me a better person. I've had so much fun just pouring into your book journey and helping you think about things in a different way. And it's just been so much fun. So I couldn't wait to have you here. I think, Elisabeth, it would be smart for us to begin our chat by going back and discussing kind of what got us to even have our paths cross. And I think that goes back to the thick of COVID when you felt compelled to do something that somehow evolved into this book idea. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like a lot of people, COVID just completely jackknifed our lives. And what I had been doing, I stopped, and I was heading back into kind of a previous career of consulting, but in a rebuild mode. So I had time that I hadn't had, like a lot of people hadn't had in a long time. And I wanted to, and I had a pretty large community in social media. And so I thought, what can I put out there that, I can offer that I've learned over, these 30 plus years in this career of mine. And so I just started putting out a weekly post. And then I did what I originally called doodles. And I've had a lot of my friends going, they're not doodles, they're drawings. So I have
Art. And it's art. You
I
are an artist.
put some art with each of these posts, and each of them was kind of a story about something that happened where I learned and shifted my thinking, shifted my behavior. But these were things that I learned over the years. So I just also put out to the social, it was LinkedIn, but the community saying, have you ever dealt with that? What'd you do? And then I got all these responses, and it ended up being this great online conversation. And this went on for quite some time. So this is over a year and pretty regularly putting these things out until I had so many that I thought, oh, and people started asking, hey, do you think you could pull these all together into like a book? Because, these are just all things that we deal with. So I thought, okay, I can do that, but then I thought, well, what does that look like? And I had another colleague who was, had written a book that I helped her with. I was on her editorial board, and I liked her process. I liked how she kind of structured the different stages of working on her book. So I just said, who helped you? Who was most helpful to you? And she said, oh my God, Stephanie Fager. And I said,
Oh.
I must know her. So that's when I made that fateful phone call where you were in Opryland.
I really think I was in Opryland. I remember where I was sitting, Elizabeth. And I remember, and it's just funny because I don't know that I've told you this. I was sitting in this spot where my kids were out doing something. My husband was doing something, and I was sitting here enjoying the view of gelato without the calories. Okay. So it was like the ice cream shop was right in front of me. Well, I get off of our call and I'm so jazzed because I inevitably can tell, honestly, the moment that I chat with somebody, if we are going to have good synergy, if I'm going to be able to help, if I'm going to grow in the process, right? Like all that stuff. It's a good fit. And so I was excited. And then a man that works there came and sat next to me in Opryland. Now, Opryland's pretty big, Elizabeth. So and there's a lot of people. So it's not surprising, except we weren't talking. And the next thing I know, he's like, so are you missing a purse? And I'm like, no, I'm not missing a purse. He's like, oh, I thought you might be the one that called. I'm like, nope, just over here working. And so I remember this. It's such a lovely conversation with this man. I don't know if he ever found the person, but I completely and utterly remember that and remember you saying, because I remember saying, there's a media personality in my community that's named Elisabeth Swan, or I don't know if she's still in the industry or not. And you remember going, I want to be the one you remember next time. And I said, yep, we've got this covered. We've got this covered. And it's been just a beautiful friendship in the making, which is something I think is a beautiful thread of authorship. There's something unique about authors understanding authors. I feel like the many authors become lifelong family and friends with me, and you're one of them. Like, we've yet to meet in person, Elizabeth, but there will be a day we will.
Yeah, not for lack of trying. The airlines make it so difficult. Not for lack of trying. Listen,
We have tried a couple times. It's gonna happen. We're gonna do
yes,
it.
it is.
It is. I'm putting it out there. We're going to make it happen. Yeah, so we had the chance. We started working together on this really amazing book that we are getting so freaking close to get over the finish line. And it has been fun for a couple things. I've made a couple of notes over here that I want to just call out. And mainly because I see it as kind of cornerstones in our journey together that you probably didn't understand or grasp or embrace as quickly as it was so obvious to me. And it's a couple things. First thing, when I'm thinking about an author's impact, I remember you talking to me about these, kind of posts. You kept calling them posts. And then I read them. I'm like, this is not a post. This is a chapter. Like, this is deep, deep goodness here. But these messages that you were sharing and getting kind of this group feedback from people is a beautiful process that many people use. You used LinkedIn as a conduit for it. For my first book, I used the blog to book concept, very similar. And what I love about it is when you start putting stuff out, I know you weren't doing it because you were wanting to make a book. You were doing it because it was something you needed, something you were looking for, and you could tell that other people could benefit from. Like, the impact I think that authors have, especially the most impactful ones, aren't ones who are looking to get something in return. Like, it's this give and take. Like, you saw a need in our community, in the leadership space, especially in the thick of COVID, and you were filling the gap. Is that how you saw it? Because that's how I did.
I saw it that way, and I have a really interesting reflection for you. And I performed improv on stage for 5 years when I was in my 30s, right? And then work got too intense and I traveled too much for work, so I couldn't do it anymore. But, if I think about improv, what it is, it's problem solving on stage. It's collaborative. You know, you're working together with people to build something. Now, I look back at this book and I realize it was improvised on LinkedIn, that I was throwing it out there and then people were responding, and then I took kind of the best wisdom of the crowd, or the stuff that I found most resonated, and then pulled that in. So it's a collaborative book. It includes the wisdom of the crowd, but it just dawned on me like, oh, that was improvised.
I think that is so cool. Well, and there's so many reasons I love that, Elizabeth. The first thing is your book was demanded. Like people demanded it. You didn't. Now you know when we started working together, and you're like, "What should I do?" I'm like, "People want your book." Like so many people have to go out and beg people to want their book, or identify the target audience, or really find the niche, and all this stuff. And yes, those are pivotal parts of any marketing effort. But you were just sharing, and people started asking, I want this compiled because I could use this. And I think that is creating demand, and that is gold.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like, you're right. It gave me insight, like, oh, people, this is mattering to people. And some people asked me to come and speak to their students. A professor at the university in Dubai, she said, "Can you come speak to my students?" And I was like, "Why?" She's like, "Well, I love your posts, and I think you could say a lot about, and she just talked about what she wanted to hear. And she goes, "And improv." So anyway, just these things erupted out of it. But you're right that I wrote a book before, a collaboration with someone else as part of a partnership. And, I wasn't as involved in the production of it. We had a graphics guy, we had someone else who was in charge of marketing. And I look back and I think, if we had had Stephanie Fager, man, that thing would have been a very different situation. But it was something that we thought, okay, this is what people need. But I didn't have that immediate call and response that I had online, which was people going, responding to the chapters, as you call them. And then that let me know, oh, this is resonating. And it also told me when it wasn't resonating, which was getting that immediate feedback, which I imagine you might have done when you did Blog to Book, right?
Yes, actually, I never had intentions of writing a book either. I just needed to write because writing was cathartic to me, right? It was an outlet. I never do well, Elizabeth, when I just hang out with myself, like me and myself. I take myself on a CEO retreat every quarter, like to the nearest hotel, like 20 minutes from here. And my dad always calls and goes, "Is the CFO being nice at this retreat?" And I'm like, "No, she's crazy. She needs a glass of wine already." And it's just me. So I always say, like, I need to get it out. I need to work through it. I process it through writing. And so my writing began just by doing that. And then when someone said, "Oh my gosh, like I wait every week for your book," I'm like, "You do?" Like, I didn't know that. Or, "When's the book coming?" I'm like, "Huh?" And then people started to uncover these kind of things. And so many people write a book and do it and then realize later that they missed a mark. They were never like in alignment with their reader. But your approach and how I did my first book was totally because they are weighing in the journey along the way. And that's something special.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about improv. I remember when I read part of your book and you talked about that. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that is so cool. I wish I could do that." I mean, I did theater in high school. I planned on being an actress. I know I told you that. But improv was never my jam. I got all nervous, so nervous on improv. But I think you just hit the nail on the head of another key thing, and that's we all come to the table with a unique skill set. So your book is you talk about leadership and in the lean space and all this other loveliness about how to kind of do personal growth and what have you. So many people, Elizabeth, could talk about that. But what you talk about it through the lens of your experience in life, which means that improv experience, your art background, like your personal stuff that you bring to the table. And I remember through our discussion and the evolution of your manuscript, we really spent time identifying and building upon your uniqueness. And you mentioned the doodles. And I remember going, "Are you kidding?" I mean, we can call them doodles all you want, but it's like gorgeous art. Like, and one day you go, "Oh, well, my family, they do art." And I'm like, "And you do too. Are you kidding? Are you kidding?" I think that your art is so intriguing to me because as with many and most art, forms and art pieces, there's so much more than meets the eye. And the simplicity of your, I don't know, I guess I would call them line drawing. I'm trying to articulate for our listeners, like what would you call it? It's not a line drawing, because line drawing is like you never pick up your pen, right?
Yeah, you're thinking of contour drawing, which is kind of one of the things I always liked, but it would be, like you said, not picking up your pen, which I do. And then it's like a blend of contour drawing and cartooning. So you get kind of the essence.
Oh, yeah.
The essence of a person's face or an expression or a scene, which is kind of what I wanted. Like, what's the simplest way to get this across? And also I realized how much fun they were. And that was a big part of the joy for me was, oh, what's the drawing going to be? And I'd sometimes do a sketch and I'd go to my husband and say, does this make sense? And he'd weigh in. And then, when I had my editorial board, which you advised me to set up, which was fantastic. And I still go back and forth with them, and they're phenomenal. So 2 things happened with them. One was that feedback that resonated like yours did, which is, I wrote about, I have, sculptors in my family, and I have artists that have, works of art in galleries and have been published. And then, I'm the redheaded stepchild. These are just doodles. And she just was like, oh, please. She goes, you wrote and illustrated a book, kiddo. She called me kiddo, and I'm older than her.
Yes.
So I was like, oh. I like okay, it. Right. She goes, don't sell yourself short and take that junk out of there. Like, just edit it right out. And I did. I think I pulled a huge piece out that was just like, who cares? And then the other one was people would write back and go, they thought about the image and they said, you know what? I think this image confused me a little, and I think it would be clearer if X. So I have spent time redrawing a lot of these images, not a lot, but a few, the few that they said didn't quite hit it, or even I look at them, I go, that's not quite hitting it for me. I could do better. I've got a new idea. So that's been a really fun part of this.
And again, it goes back to the collaboration, right? Like, not everybody's open to feedback, and that is actually, I think when you've asked me, when we had a conversation recently about help me grow or what have you, I'm like, of course you would ask that. The woman who embraces feedback. Not many people do. And you have used feedback and collaboration in every part of your process. You did it in the beginning unintentionally, right? It's not always easy, but you've done it and you've built and grown from it. And that's something I really respect in you.
I think improv training made me have the complete different look at feedback, in that hearing from another human being, like you said, it's a build. So I can't be on stage alone. That's a scene that goes nowhere. So I'm listening to hear what the other person is going to offer to build. Those years completely altered the way it actually started me on a new career. I remember once I did I thought, if I could be on stage and make stuff up in front of thousands of people, what could I not do? And then I started looking at my career much more, like with a finer eye, like, well, I don't like this part and I don't like that. Like, I want to do that. And things just opened up. So I feel like that has stood me in good stead. And so when it comes to the book, collaborating with you, listening to you, and what I call your hotbed of ideas that come out every time we have a conversation. So just, those are always like, those are money. Those are like, wow, okay, let me just take in, because, Stephanie just poured a bunch of stuff out, and, that's going to help me, and obviously you don't take every single thing a person says, which is another, with your editorial board, you got to like weigh it back and forth. Like, what do I take in? What do I not? And I probably take too much in, but I'd rather do that than not.
Well, I mean, I think we could all learn from you there, because as an author, you're pouring your heart and soul on a page, and then we open it up for scrutiny. And many of us don't want to hear that. Like, I want to say, there've been times I want to say, when people give feedback, I'm like, I don't see you over here writing a book, people, like, why are you doing that? That's not fair. I did something really big and hard. But when you are receptive to hearing it and not being judgmental or defensive around it, that's where growth happens. And it's funny, I use growth, and then you call my head a hotbed. I'll never forget the day you emailed me and you were like, your brain is a hotbed. And I think it was like as simple as that. Okay. And I go, is this a good thing or a bad thing? And I thought, well, it's Elisabeth, so it's a good thing. You're so kind. But I did a quick search to confirm my thoughts on a hotbed, and I think you knew that I'm a gardener, and I'm like, well, of course, we had just bought a greenhouse that didn't it flew away, so we bought a bigger one next. I've got a really big one we got to put up one day. But that whole concept of you know creating an environment that allows growth. And I just appreciate that phrase. I've shared that with others. I'm like, that is the best way to explain how my brain works. But not everybody's receptive to the growth, right? Like, I was recently having a conversation with my husband about the importance of change. And the reality is someone can have their hand out in front of you all day, but you have to take their hand. Like you have to take the first step in accepting it, or being open to hearing it, or being willing to trim or pluck the tomatoes out of the hotbed of the garden, right? Like, and do something. And you did. And it wasn't just once or twice, but every time we've come together, you've done that and you've risen to the occasion. Like when we started talking the first time, you had one idea for your book, and we've spent a lot of time evolving. How is your book going to be used in your work? And you were open to all of that. I mean, I think author impact doesn't just go out, when you publish a book to other people, but it can come in if you're willing to have it happen. And you have.
Yeah, and I think your process, what is most helpful is the questions you ask, right? I feel like inquiry is what leads people to the discovery. So you ask targeted questions, you ask good questions, you ask questions to help authors just like put pieces together, challenge your thinking, sort of make some of the implicit stuff explicit, like write that down, like what actually is that, because it can live in kind of a vague gray area in your mind, like, yeah, it's kind of like this. It's like, well, what exactly is it? Like, what are you saying, and who are you talking to? So just really putting a fine point on that. And I feel like that is what the book, the structure of the book too, like that's what I did. I, at the end of each chapter, asking a question of the crowd, and then asking a question of the reader. Like, now that you know all this, what are you going to do differently? What are you going to experiment with, right? Because my world is, problem solving. So, and how do you help people problem solve? How do you help yourself? But I think your questions, your constant sort of build through inquiry is key.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Because my gut reaction, Elizabeth, over the years has always just been to do, right? Like I was the kid as a kid who didn't want to be on a team for like a team project. I just wanted to do it. Just let me do it all. And so taking the time to evolve there has actually been a lifelong journey for me. So like thanks for noticing. I really appreciate that. Like because I've found that I have another author I worked with, and I just kept asking her why, and why just, it pulls apart the layers to finally get to the core. And I've enjoyed that process. And again, having someone like you on the other end who is equally as reflective in the process, and then doesn't just end our chats and be done. You'll come back a week later and go, I've given it even more thought, Stephanie. And I'm like, of course you have. And it has been great. And because of that, we've been able to do so much together. We will very, very soon be bringing to life your book that we have been working on behind the scenes. We have helped you with building a brand that is superb. I love your brand. We've had a website. I mean, we've done so many things to help you kind of fall in beautifully to this author world, and independent, and like you're not a co-author, you, Elisabeth, the thought leader out there, author world, that has been just so much fun to do, especially because of how you bring your strategic brain to the table.
Yeah.
If you could pick like your one favorite thing from our collaborations, what would that be?
I think you opened my mind to and gave me a pathway, because I had a publisher offering me a contract, and you helped me through inquiry and your podcasts and your instruction to imagine this other pathway that I feel really good about, that I feel like, oh, okay, I'm not taking that path, and I feel like you've helped me see and embrace, like, oh, this is already great, and it's going to be even better. So I'm thankful for that.
Oh, well, I am thankful that you said yes to the recommendation of one of our mutual friends, because I've my kids tell me all the time, "Mom, stop talking to people." And I tell them, I said, "No, I'm a collector of people." And that's a good thing, meaning I love people, and finding people who are just sharing their value and their skill set in meaningful ways is meaningful to me. So it's just like truly an honor to have you be one of my people. And that's why one day, Elisabeth, I'm putting it out there, we will be people in the same room hugging, and it will just happen because I know it, because you're family. And I'm just excited, so excited for the future for you, and so excited. You've already made an impact in the lives of many. I can't wait to see what this book and more will do in your space. It's going to be amazing.
Ah, you are lovely. We're doing it together.
I know nothing fun happens alone, or nothing has to be in a silo. Collaboration is the key. Absolutely. Well, thank you for being on the podcast today, and for being an author who has made an impact in my life, but one I know that is going to make an impact in so many others.
Thanks for having me, Stephanie. You're a gem.
If you aren't following Elisabeth Swan on LinkedIn, go do it now. That's an order. I'm just kidding. But seriously, though, her insights into life and leadership always leave me contemplating what I bring into this world and how I can make a difference. I know it will do the same for you too. And Elisabeth's book will be coming out soon, so be sure to visit elisabethswan.com to learn more. And she spells Elisabeth with an S. Collaboration is the name of the game. And partner that with not only soliciting feedback on the regular, but being open to hearing it and changing from it is not easy to do, but worth it in the long run. Elisabeth continues to inspire me to get better at that, and I believe that in doing so, we get closer and closer to making our author impact. I've loved working with Elisabeth and helping her craft her book, create her website, and now publish that book, and I'd love to work with you too. If I can help you make an impact, let's chat, and you may enjoy reading my newest book, Make Your Author Impact. I am humbled to get the opportunity to help authors, and I'm honored to support them. Impact, however, it's a two-way street, friends. It's a pay it forward kind of amazing. If you like my book, Make Your Author Impact, please share with another author, because it just may be the empowerment tool to help them make their impact too. Author friend, thanks for listening today and for saying yes to becoming empowered. As you know, I'm a believer that empowered people empower people. I've empowered you. Now it is your turn to empower others.